Hey everybody, good afternoon. I'm Stephen Werner, Tech Director here for the historic Morton Theater, and we want to welcome you to another episode of the Morton Green Room. And today we have with us a special guest. This is Jeremy Miller. He works with us through our Athens Creative Theatre program, but that's about all I want to tell you about him because we have a slew of questions and I want him to be able to talk about himself and tell you a little bit more about what he does now and what he's done in the past. So without further ado, we'll kind of start with a little softball question here, toss it up. Tell us, basically your title, what you do, and I've already given away where you currently work, but tell us a little bit about how long you've served in that position and how it all came about.
Well, with Athens Creative Theatre, I'm the equipment specialist, and that kind of is an open title. It translates to I collaborate with Terry and Daniel, and I try to see the vision for each show. Set-wise is the first focus. Construction, mapping it out, getting the equipment, putting it all together, and painting it. And then once it's complete and it kind of serves the vision of the show, then I focus on props and altering the light and helping with sound. So I kind of run across all technical aspects, but my main focus is set construction.
Gotcha. And you've been with ACT for a good bit, right?
Oh, that's right. I think it's been 10 years.
Wow, congratulations, man.
Yeah, I started out as contract labor for a couple of years, and I just became so, I tried to be as valuable as possible so that I could at least keep the hours, and then it just became more consistent when it became a permanent part-time position.
Awesome. Man, that's a lot to have your hands in.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Want to dive back a little bit in your history. Tell us, that's where you are now. Kind of tell us, how did you first develop an interest for this kind of work?
I don't know. I kept falling into shows in elementary school. Mainly we would be talking about something, and then I would just, I guess I wanted attention a lot as a kid, and I just started adding characters to theatrical productions, and the teachers kept encouraging that, and they would throw me into it. And I didn't realize I really had an interest in theater until I moved to Habersham County and got involved with the community theater there. And I got a lot of encouragement and a lot of attention, and it was great.
Cool.
And it just kind of kept developing and developing. It started out as acting, but then I realized I could get paid much better and more consistently with tech, and all those kind of aspects. So it just kind of it was kind of like a bumper pool of destiny.
Cool. You heard it from here, straight from here, folks. He makes more money behind the scenes than some people do in front. So keep that in mind. My parents had that same concern for me when I came to them and told them that I wanted to pursue a career in entertainment. They were very pragmatic folk, and they're like, "Hey, that's great, son. Just have a fallback plan."
Yeah.
So
there's more demand in the technical aspect because everybody wants to. There's a lot of people that want to act, and they all have a similar amount of talent. But with the tech, it's just you can really focus on that, and it can pay your bills.
absolutely, and then some. Was there a point along your development there from acting and then into the tech side of theater that you would consider like a lucky break or a breakthrough, this aha kind of moment that said, "Hey, this is going to be where I butter my bread. This is where I make my living and have a great time and build a career out of this."
Yeah, there was a moment where I had been focusing on a film. I went to film school for my master's, and I was just working on the side, and things kind of fell through, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had been working at a department store, and then I was working as a teacher, and things just didn't work out, and I didn't know. And then this call came from the Highlands Playhouse in North Carolina, and they were looking for a technical director, something I had never really aspired to be or even thought that I could do. And it's a summer stock style, and it was a lot of hard work, but it really rounded me out, and it took all of my, jack of all trades and really honed all those skills into something that could be a leader.
Awesome. So you think that moment when you got that call and you kind of had that thrown into the deep end of the pool kind of
Exactly.
moment, and that challenge is, you feel like that's what really drew those skills out for you, and you kind of sunk your teeth into this career?
Oh yeah, it was definitely, that was a really hard first summer
I bet.
to be, baptized in fire. We had two big shows right off the bat, and you have a 3-day turnaround between each.
Wow.
And the first show was The Fiddler on the Roof, which is a huge musical production, and then the second show was Noises Off, which had a revolving set that had to
wow.
work. And we had the master carpenter. He quit right in the middle of all that, so having to make that transition, make it work, and carry it through, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
No kidding. But you survived, and you've gone on to do some other really good things.
Oh yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit about your education. Tell me a little bit more about like your specialized education training, both formal and informal, that helped you be better prepared for this profession. Once you got into it, realized what you were up against, what kind of steps did you take initiative-wise to kind of better prepare yourself for the future in tech work?
I had a bachelor's in theater and studio art, and even back then, I had an old camera, and I would be making movies at night just for fun with my friends.
Gotcha.
And then went to masters with film school, and it all just kind of honed me into finding that leadership. Being able to be a leader of a project or a collaborative art or collaborative storytelling.
Gotcha.
And that's really where I would like to focus if careers would open up, kind of thing.
Right.
I'd love to find a team of people that had a similar mindset, and we all just collaborated on telling stories.
Right. I know you and I have had a chance over the couple of years that I've been here at the Morton to work together in some of the ACT productions, and it's been a blast. You've taught me some things. Certainly, I don't have that carpentry or that scenic skill set in my tool bag, but I have a lot of fun working with individuals like yourself who have that broadness to what they do. And I'm the kind of tech director, folks, that can't tie a bowline consistently. So you have gaps in your education, gaps in your experience, and that's why we lean into each other.
Exactly.
Theater is very much a collaborative effort. I think a lot of folks don't realize just how much work and how many people there are behind the curtain that make the things that we see on stage beautiful and safe.
Well, experience is the best teacher, I have found.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learning by doing is the best way.
And that's one of the things I've always loved about this career is, yes, there are formal education paths, and all those things are useful. You talked about your experiences. I feel like those things are good groundwork, but nothing really prepares you better than, like you said, just jumping in and learn by doing, and being ready to not always do things the right way. Hopefully you got some good teachers around you, people that'll pour some stuff into you. So tell me a little bit, with stage production, there's kind of the before, during, and after, and our roles change and our duties change depending on if we're ramping up for a show, what we do during that show run, and then how we deconstruct that show and take it apart. So kind of tell me, you don't have to go through the whole laundry list, but kind of tell me in general, like ramping up into a show from like the first seed Terry comes to you and says, hey, we're going to do this particular show. This is kind of what I have in mind for the set, to the show's over and the set's coming down, kind of what you do throughout that process.
Gotcha. Yeah. Usually it's, I digest the show. I try to read the script. I try to do some research. But, I maintain a flexibility because the vision is Terry's. And so I kind of have to draw out what she sees it as and how it needs to look. And, and usually we trade drawings for a couple of days until I draw something that looks exactly like what she's thinking. And I think that's the key is, if we can get that drawn out and see, and I can give her an idea of how big or what it looks like, so that she knows how to manipulate her performers around it and the set and the props and stuff. Once we get that established, then I just go to work. We have an inventory that I typically use from. But if we need anything at that point, I'll realize, hey, we need some lumber, or we need some paint,
Right.
or we need some plexiglass because we're going to have a window this time,
Right.
and then I go to start building it, and I try to get stuff out there for the performers to deal with as soon as possible, so they can all realize, because they've got to say their lines and not bump into the furniture. So the sooner I get the furniture out there, they know where it's going to be. And they won't do that.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask you. Like, are you able, from that concept time, once y'all have hashed that out, director to scene designer, does she come to you and say, hey, Jeremy, do you have a date that you can have these items out to me? And then you try to work towards those dates. Like you said, stage plays are literature in motion, right? So people are moving around. And the sooner you get those pieces out there, they can get their blocking down and how they're going to move around the stage. So do y'all have dialogue like that going on, where you set deadlines to have certain things done?
It depends. If it's an important and integral piece, such as in the Christmas story, we had a slide.
I remember
that was
that.
important, so we had to try to, I wanted to get that out there and used as soon as possible. But most of the time, it's not that concrete. The actors just can move around, and they can put chairs where chairs need to be, or a table where a table needs to be, and usually the set is static and it's not moving around.
Right.
But sometimes there's details of the storytelling that you got to figure out.
Right.
Because when you're on the Morton and you want to have different scenes happening, one scene's got to move off, and where does it go? And so we try to think about that, as soon as possible too. But usually we don't get in the space until tech week, so it's kind of a quick turnaround there.
Yeah, so you're designing things for a space you've yet to occupy. You said something just a few minutes ago that I thought was very poignant. As a scene designer, folks, he said he reads the entire script. I think that's really important. Everybody is engaging with this material on a different level. As a tech director, I don't get a chance to read every single thing that comes through the door, but I try to have a general idea. If it's, standard repertoire kind of things, yeah, I might be really familiar with that show because maybe I've worked on it before in another venue. But I think that's really an important aspect of preparation that you hit on there professionally. Very interested to hear, and thank you for sharing all that. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you as the scene designer and equipment tech, call us TD, you're really interacting heavily with the director. Like you alluded to the fact that, it's her vision. I think you're very kind in saying that, it's hers, but there is a collaboration. There's a symbiotic relationship that goes on between these roles. So we heard a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about, are there some common myths or misconceptions about your profession? Like, I think some people see what I call the magic of the stage, and they think it just poofs out of a hat, or we sprinkle some magic fairy dust out here. But there's a lot of work that goes in from taking a concept 2D on paper and making it 3D real life. There's limitations to a building, like you said, size and scale are important.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about like myths and misconceptions about being a scene designer.
I don't know about myths or misconceptions. I mean, that's the whole point, is to tell the story and get them to be drawn into it and forget that it's a play, or forget that where they are. They want to get lost in a moment,
Right.
or 130 moments. Take the Morton, for instance. There's not a lot of wing space, and if you got to have a lot of scenes going on, you got to figure out how to do that. And the best thing to do is to utilize the fly system,
There you
because
go.
you can get a whole lot of stuff, and we think in that way. But we also have scenes where there's furniture involved, and it's gotta be manipulated, and the audience doesn't see that unless that's part of the idea. Some shows you want them to see that, or in some capacities a designer wants them to see someone come out and grab something. But in most cases, the story that takes them out of the story.
Cool.
So you don't want them to see someone grab a chair. You just want a transition to happen while there's a musical interlude, and kind of sleight of hand, kind of theatrical sleight of hand.
Right.
It's like curtain closes and opens 5 seconds later, and you're on a beach, as
Yeah,
opposed to
you've
being
taken
in a
them to a
mansion.
whole different place,
Yeah.
imaginatively.
So you kind of have to manipulate their mind and their eyes to keep them, following the story.
Have you, and I'm sure you like you alluded to early in your career, you had a master carpenter walk out on the job. Technical theater has its emotional issues and drama, just like every other profession can have.
Sure.
So, talk to me a little bit about some things that have really challenged you professionally, and maybe how you work to resolve those things. And did you develop a new, I call it a tool you put in your tool bag, so that when that similar situation came up in the future, you were better able to handle it?
Well, the best tool to have when you're collaborating is the ability to communicate. And also knowing that people communicate differently. Each person has a different way of communicating. And so to collaborate that vision together, you've got to be flexible. You got to figure it out early on how to talk, so that you can work together and get it done. So communicating, conveying a direction, or conveying the story quickly so you don't waste time. And over the years, I've learned how to do that. I've learned that when a lot of technicians would get together, and once they start talking about how would you do this? Well, how would you do this? Well, how would you do this? You gotta know when to stop that conversation so that you can actually get the job done.
Right.
So that's been one of the thing, is you gotta find a good way to do this, and tell someone that's how we do it, get it done, because you don't have a lot of time usually.
That's right. It goes from concept in the head to physically on a stage very, very quickly. And like you said, just being able to navigate those conversations where, this is a business where we emote a lot. Even technicians, like, we're not cold, unfeeling people. We got into this business because, like you said, it's that aspect of telling stories.
Well, we all want to have a good idea too.
Right.
And we want everybody to know our good idea and hear our good idea, but unfortunately, there's not enough time to get them all out, and it's figure out what the job needs to be done and distribute it to someone who can complete it, while you figure out what the rest of the jobs are.
Do you have along the way, and you've probably worked on hundreds of productions in your career, do you have a favorite show or shows, production or event that just sort of stands out in your mind, and you go, man, I just had a great time working on this show for whatever the reason?
I think you get attached. A lot of people get attached to each show they do, and they get really emotional when it's done. However, I like to break it down, throw it out, and move on to the next one. I don't like to hold on to it. There's a lot of shows I did with Rose of Athens that I really was proud of, and I really would like to do it again. There's been several shows with Athens Creative Theatre that were in the same situation that I would do again, and I really enjoyed. I really wish I could think of something, but they're like it's like your children. You can't really say what's your favorite because I could talk about each and every one of the 100 things that I've done.
I know the ones I've enjoyed the most collaborating with you guys. You guys have really bitten off some tough ones. You know, Newsies. You did The King and I earlier this season before COVID kind of hit everything. A Christmas Story. I mean, a lot of these are shows that have taken on a life of their own. They're almost classics, and yet you all were able to bring those shows to life on this stage in a way that I had not experienced them before. And I think it was very interesting the way you alluded to. You know, some people like to hold on to those shows and kind of marinate in those moments. But do you think being a part of the physicality of building the set and the dreaming aspect and all that, going back and deconstructing that set, is that kind of a mental operation for you where you're just like, I'm going to clear my mind and move on to the next thing? It's like, hey, that was fun, but okay, let's take this apart, and I'm already on to the next idea.
It's definitely like letting it go. It's a wonderful part of the process. I really enjoy. I really enjoy shaking the Etch-a-Sketch.
That's a great analogy.
Because
I love
that's what you got to do. Otherwise, you can't use the Etch-a-Sketch in.
Well, as we wrap it up here, just a couple of more questions for you. If you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, you know, that would maybe make your journey to success a little bit smoother, is there something that you would go back and tell the younger Jeremy, hey, it looks bleak right now, but here's how it's going to work out? Or
You know, I wish I had focused on all this earlier. You know, I just had a penchant for wanting to tell stories or perform or get attention, and I didn't realize it all, you know, until, you know, in high school. You know, I wasn't just doing it for fun. I was starting to take it really seriously, and I wish I could have learned a lot more earlier on and relied less on talent and luck and being funny, you know, as I evolved and developed.
so just maybe a deeper awareness earlier in your development.
Yeah,
Of
like a
where
better,
this was
a
going.
stronger foundation in the education and in the structures. You know, I really did fall into tech. You know, I wanted to be solely an actor. I took that very seriously. That's what I wanted to do, and you know, you get done with your acting education, and then you're like, well, how do I go about doing this? Oh, I have to move to New York, or I have to move to California. You know, that was hard. But with tech, it's like everybody. There's always a need for that.
It's true.
So it just happened that way, and
Very-
I still get to act a lot. I mean, even though I'm building and doing a lot of tech work for ACT, there's often a role that needs to be filled, and Terry will put me in it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, we were just discussing that thing before we turned cameras on, that you've got an upcoming role that you and your wife are acting together in, which is amazing. I think that's kind of a shared experience that a lot of us have that have made a career out of tech, that we started out with a performance focus and ended up getting the tech bug bit us, and now we prefer to be on the other side. And it's just as much of a passion, and just as much, you bring just as much emotion and energy and thought and creativity, imagination on this side as you do on the acting side. And I've always said that one side informs the other, right? If you're as a great performer, learn something about tech, because then that helps you to communicate to a technician in their profession, in their language, and tell them what you need from them to be able to put on a better performance, and then vice versa. One last question for you. We'll address kind of the elephant in the room. You know, this COVID-19 pandemic, I mean, it is an absolute understatement to say that it has impacted the whole world, obviously, but has very much impacted the entertainment industry and how we go about what we do. Have there been some steps that you've taken even in these last couple of weeks or months to adapt your skill set and remain productive and creative in the, during this period of time?
Yeah, there was a while where we were all working from home as best we could, and I was having my back porch replaced, and I asked my guy who's building the new porch to leave the old porch wood instead of throwing it out, and because I had an idea. And then when he get done with the back porch, I took all that scrap wood and I built a stage in my little forest in the backyard with the intention of using that maybe as the stage for a digital theater where my wife and I and whomever else we can work with safely can maybe start building a digital theater.
That's very, very awesome. I didn't know that you all had done that, but that's very indicative of people. I think in our industry is what some people see as junk or throwaway. We look at it and we begin to see possibilities.
Use what you got. That's for sure. Yeah, it is very valuable to be able to be flexible, to have some building blocks and being able to build anything out of them. But that's not to say grab whatever you can out of a dumpster and keep saving it, because in theater, I've learned that one of the most valuable things you can have is space.
All right, absolutely. You alluded to the fact that we have a lot of wonderful things about the Morton, but like you said, wing space, which wing space being a technical term that describes obviously the space that the audience doesn't see beyond the stage. That's where all the movement goes on. And so when you're putting on a big stage play on a stage the size of the Morton with very little wing space, there's a lot of logistical gymnastics that go on behind the scenes,
for real,
and things on and off.
I mean, not just set pieces or furniture or props, but there's actors trying to get off the stage and on the stage, and and you're trying to get the furniture off the stage and on the stage. So there's you got to work with a lot of people, and everybody's got to understand what paths everybody's got to take so everybody's safe, and when you do it as quickly as possible so the audience isn't sitting there thinking, well, what's going on?
Exactly. Yeah, I think you talked about how communication is so important. I always say communication and awareness. When you're on a stage, whether you're a performer or a technician, you have your head on a swivel. You're aware of your surroundings. And, as technicians, we work a lot of times in the dark. So there's a lot of tools that we use to draw awareness to things that could be potentially dangerous or hazardous to people. We take things seriously, gaffing or taping down cords. That's a position. If you ever watch the credits on a movie, you'll see head gaffer. And I was like, who is that? That's the guy or gal that's on the floor taping cords down, and you go, that's a thing? Yeah, that's a thing. And there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And I always say tape's cheaper than lawsuits. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Even though I've worked around you for the last couple of years, a couple of things I've learned about your background, and we wish you all the best. We're so thankful that you're a part of our team, and we hope that this interview has been helpful to those that are watching and listening. Jeremy is a great asset to the Athens Creative Theatre program and to the theater world here in Athens. There's a very robust community theater program, so very appreciative to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Well, I think that'll wrap it up today for the Morton Green Room. We enjoy the opportunity of coming to you from this beautiful stage. We look forward to opening up again as soon as possible safely. But for now, we want to bring you virtually into this space and tell you a little bit more about what we do on the other side of the curtain. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yeah.